Hey sleepyheads! Welcome to the second part of episode 2 of Bed by 9. In this part of the epi, we discuss Netflix The White Tiger, The Little Things starring Denzel Washington, Rami Malek, and Jared Leto, and the first official trailer to Godzilla vs. Kong. So go pour yourself a little drinky drink in your giraffe cup and take some time for yourself, because like Mama D, you deserve. Okay, so the next one that we'll touch upon is, you want to do White Tiger? Netflix?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so White Tiger is basically...
So I started off that last one. You tell me how you feel, what stood out to you.
Well, let me start with just like a quick synopsis of it.
Okay.
White Tiger is set in India, and it's about basically the rise of someone that is in a very low caste in their society to a place where...
What's a caste?
A hierarchy, a very low hierarchy point.
I'll accept that.
And he figures out a way to break the cycle and get to a place in his life where he can actually not be super poor like he was brought up. Mm-hmm. It's called White Tiger because there is a legend or an urban myth that once a century the jungle produces a white tiger, which is just a rare occurrence of that doesn't fit the reality.
Yes.
And so he self-classifies himself as the White Tiger because he is able to escape the caste system and rise to a place where most people are stuck in where they're born into, which I think is true of any society. I mean, even if you look at America, like people that are born poor are perpetually like stuck in this situation, and it's harder for them obviously to escape that than someone that's raised in the middle or upper class. They just don't have the same access to things.
Okay.
It was cool because it was set kind of as like a dark comedy. There were definitely dark comedic points to it.
Yeah.
And
so wait. So it's not necessarily dark comedic. It's a dark movie.
Dark movie,
but
yes.
It's definitely, there's some comedy in it.
Right.
So like I would clarify, like Parasite, it was a comedy that was super dark at one point. Mm-hmm. And it was the same thing with White Tiger. It was a comedy until it wasn't.
I would say it's very on par with Parasite. Like it
I'll
felt very similar because like the overall plot line of being able to escape the situations that you're born into were prevalent there. And like overall, and it was funny because he's writing a letter at the beginning of the movie to, I believe it was like the leader of China. And he's like, hey, I know you're coming to visit. Like, let me tell you my story. I have an arrest warrant. Ignore that. I'm an entrepreneur. And this is my story of how I got there. And so it kind of goes into it. But, he's born into a society where it's a matriarchy. His grandma rules everything that goes on in there. And he was able to escape it because the person that was kind of running his community needed a driver for his son that was coming back from America. And so he
wasn't run this community. He was a legend of the community. So it was
But he was like the landlord. So like he basically dictated their lives of what they could do. And his son was coming back from America who went there for school, and he ends up finding a way to become the driver for his son.
Yes.
And basically in any situation of rising from the bottom up, there's some manipulation, there's some shady shit that you have to do in order to rise up the food chain. And what I really liked about it was there was a lot of references to like animals or the food chain. Like he was talking about how people in India, they're basically brought up to like everyone in there is like a chicken coop, I think is what he said it was. And is like the chicken coop analogy was, there's in a meat market, there's these chickens that are in these cages, and the butcher takes them one at a time and kills them, but the chickens don't freak out because they're so accustomed to seeing this every day over and over. And that's how the people in this caste system are like. They're seeing their people over and over getting the shit end of the stick.
Right.
And they're just very accustomed to it, and they don't do anything about it. Like, even when he got the job, when they're like, oh, we're going to pay you 2,000 rupees a week. And then he's like, oh, no, that's too much. Like, pay me 500 and we'll be okay. Like,
ridiculous.
Like, they're just so conditioned to being shat on all the time that, like, that was very prevalent in the movie. So I think overall, I really liked it. Like, you saw him, like, you knew the whole time, like, this motherfucker's gonna snap at some point.
Yeah.
And he did.
You know how
Not to give it away, but, like, he did at one point.
You know how I
knew
knew he was gonna snap? Mm-hmm. He had a ponytail. I knew he was gonna snap because he had a ponytail.
Yeah, he would have...
Because his cutback, he was like, he had regular hair, and then I'm like, oh, he's been through enough stress that he had to pull it back and tie it off. I'd be like, oh, I'm a different person now.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that ponytail,
But
that was my telltale.
Yeah, no, like, and the interesting thing was,
and that little mustache where you curled at the end a little.
And you think, like, with any of these kind of stories that go on, their intentions at the beginning are like 100% pure. Like his intention was, oh, I want to escape. I'm going to give basically all the money to my family. And then as he's getting more money and getting more comfortable in the position and his rank as he moves up, his relationship with his family basically becomes non-existent, right? Like, he stops giving them money. His brother comes and pleads with them that they sent, like, his little cousin to come and, like, shadow him to, like, hopefully take over his thing. And, like, he basically just said, nah, fuck y'all.
Yeah.
Like, I escaped and I ain't gonna help you. Like, you need to figure it out yourself. And it's interesting to see how money and power does that to people, but that's very prevalent in these kind of stories.
So, question.
Yeah.
Did you see the twist coming? As in, so you saw that he was not in the position that he was portraying as a story. Mm-hmm. I thought, personally, when we figured out that he was like a tech mogul, like the guy he was working for was a tech mogul and this, that, and the other, I thought he was going to gain the knowledge because they brought up multiple times, it's like, oh, he's dumb. He can read, but he doesn't know what he's saying. Like,
because his grandma took him out of school. She made him do something else.
I thought he was going to, like, oh, they're going to teach him, and then he's going to learn wealth, and then he's going to learn certain things like that. That's what I thought the story was going to be, and lo and behold...
Took a little turn.
Oh!
Kept it with, like, a blue-collar industry.
It was a big turn.
Sort of thing.
Like, to explain it, if we were in Mario Kart, instead of taking a regular turn, he took a secret path.
A shortcut?
Yeah, he took a big shortcut. Mm-hmm. Speaking of cuts, the cut on that dude's neck. How I felt about the movie. It made me feel a lot of things.
Oh, wow.
Because to know
descriptive.
Yeah. To know that the caste system, because this was probably, they're trying to set this back probably like 90s, early 2000s, however they want to do it. To know that the caste system is still currently in effect is no other. Insane. Mm-hmm. And I knew that because it's talked about in another podcast that I listened to. And then I researched it once I found out what it was. And I'm like...
Did you get into the Untouchables in the society?
No, not yet.
So they still have a caste in there. They're called the Untouchables, where it's like you are literally not supposed to talk or like touch or anything with this specific group of people because they're so lowly. Like, they literally look at animals at a higher place in their society than these people.
That's insane.
Yeah, the culture's crazy. Like, but I mean, like, every culture has it. Like, I'm not gonna say like the way that we treat people in America is much better, but it's like you actually call people untouchables.
I mean, how we treat your neighbors outside this mansion is definitely different than how we treat...
We had karaoke one night that went to 10 p.m. and they got mad. It's not the same.
It's not the same.
It's not the same.
You lowlifes with your backyard that's not as fabricated as this. So
whatever.
So
God has blessed me.
So basically, right?
Yeah.
So learning about the caste system, figuring that out, and then when he was going through his whole story, explaining the whole process and hierarchy. So in the beginning, he was talking about it, and he was like, so if anything goes wrong, they'll come back and murder my family and anyone associated to it. And I'm like, that's an incredible call out right now in this movie, not knowing that may or may not be in effect later on.
And then, through a series of events, he's like, yeah, I don't know what happened to my family.
And then he opens up a newspaper. It says 17 people killed in a small village.
And he's like,
ooh, next page.
I'm just going to roll that one up. What's the sports section say?
Let me drive my BMW over here. Let me figure out that.
Oh, look at the cricket scores.
My family still eats chicken and rice with their feet.
Jesus.
Give me hummus. They do a lot of things over there that's weird. I know they don't eat with their feet. I do. But we're going to go back. So we're going to get into a little bit of spoilers here. This gentleman, after rising through basically being the driver, first off, he was the second in command driver. How would you call that?
Yes, he was number 2.
Because
there was the main driver for the dad, and then he was the driver for the dad's son.
And then he decided, because he wanted to be the dad's... No, he wasn't the driver for the dad's son yet, because the main driver was given a task to send them to the main city. And he was like, no, I want that job. And then once he figured out he wanted that job, he was like, I'm going to sabotage this main guy. And then he basically stalked the main guy throughout the city. He
found out he was Muslim.
Yeah, he found out he was Muslim. And he was like, Cassius Clay. Let me go ahead and snitch on you. Full circle. Up top, MTV.
That was sound of one hand clapping, everyone.
So he snitched on him, and then he came back, was like, but I've been a driver for 20 years. And the young guy was like,
yeah, that's the thing. He's just like, that's the way this shit goes.
You gotta quit now, playboy. Deuces. And then he became the main driver, took the son to the main city, and then it kind of just went crazy.
It spiraled out of control really quickly.
So with the trailer, that you see that he has to sign like an affidavit. Is that what it's called?
Basically.
Saying that he killed a person when he wasn't the driver, when it was the drunk wife, who I liked. The drunk wife of the kid.
Oh, I hate...
She was obnoxious. No, she was obnoxious, but that's most...
I want to get into that.
Okay.
I do want to get into it.
She was obnoxious, but I liked her because she stood up for him, except that one time he was scratching his crotch and he smelled like naan or whatever.
When she was in front of other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. When it impacted someone else's view of her. Which is all... We'll get into it.
Yeah. So that being said, it's like... You see all of that, and you're like, okay, how is this going to end? How is this going to tie together? And it's just, it did it well. It did it well.
It did. I think it did a really good job of balancing sympathy with like hatred towards almost every character. Like, not almost every character. Like, I couldn't really relate with, the landlord dude or anything like that.
I can relate,
but like,
because when I want my calves massaged, I don't want you to talk to me.
I want my calves massaged.
I'll kick you if you don't massage my calves the right way.
Olive oil? Olive oil?
Olive oil?
Ask for frankincense and myrrh on these calves.
I only want avocado oil because we're the fancy... I don't have a good joke.
Okay, but I want to get into real quick. So the family treated him really poorly.
Yes.
Then the landlord's son, I can't read, something like that. Akash. Are you sure? Yeah.
No.
God.
I don't have my phone. You can look it up.
So he was basically his driver, and then his wife Pippi or something of that sort. So out of the family, they treated him the best.
She treated him the best.
But so his son was, I don't believe she was Hindu. She was Indian, but she wasn't Hindu because she was Christian.
Yes.
And so his son kind of broke family ties by marrying this Christian woman that he met in America. And so she kind of offered a different perspective on everything for his son. So they treated him a little bit better, but at the same time, they still treated him like less than, or like shit. Like, and what I mean by that is like what you had mentioned, like she was defending him in front of like his dad and asking him questions like, what do you want to do for your life? Stop belittling yourself, like carve your own path sort of thing. But then, you know, in front of her own people, or, you know, in her cast, or what you want to say, like her equals, you know, she then would go and belittle him or apologize for his lack of manners or behavior and things like that. And to me, like, the whole two-faced bullshit, like, that's just as annoying or frustrating to see out of someone. Like, at least the other people were 100 with him, no matter who was in front of them or not, because there was that one lady that kind of ran the country. I forget what her name was. She was the politician lady that came to his house and was like, I don't give a fuck like what you say. Like, if you don't pay this tax, then I'm gonna... You don't remember? I forget what her name was.
I can't remember.
But anyway, she...
Okay.
But anyways, they're like, I don't care if you're a rich, crazy politician or not. Like, I'm going to treat my servant like a servant 100% of the time. And these people are like, no, I'm going to treat you like an equal when I'm trying to reprimand my husband's family. Right. But then when I'm in front of my own people, if you do something wrong, I'm going to be quick to call you out on it and apologize for you. And that, like, didn't really set well with me. So
I get that. At
the same time that, like, yeah, they treated you better, like, I think it just kind of showed that it's kind of ingrained in humans in general that, like, we look down on people that we don't see as equals, and we don't necessarily treat them the same. But I think... I like the movie. I thought they did it really well. It was...
Do we want to talk about the twist?
Go for it. Twist and shout.
Twist and shout and let it all out. So, it was a good movie. And so we keep tap dancing around like the big twist in the movie, where we realize that he was a lowly driver, and then you see him in the forefront of the movie where he's kind of successful, and you know he's successful because he has a ponytail and a fancy jacket on. That's how you know. And
a waxed mustache.
And a waxed mustachio.
Mm-hmm.
So in the movie, so you figure out after the car crash, where someone gets murdered, he signs the affidavit. He goes through a whole life-changing experience, realizes that his life is kind of over. And then shortly after, they're like, no one reported this. You're okay.
You're good.
You're good.
But just in case we're keeping this paperwork on file, like,
the family still had the paper. It was like, hey, you're still ours. I'm just letting you know, you're still ours. You're stuck.
Yeah.
He snapped. Mm-hmm. And then shortly after that, the wife was like, no. So it was before that the wife left.
She asked him to drive her to the airport in the middle of the night. She didn't tell anybody. Yep, and then she told him, he told the landlord's son, which was her husband, the next day. And he was like, you're an idiot. Like, why didn't you tell him? That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And then he basically at that point turned on him, because he kind of equated like them getting divorced and her leaving him to be the driver's fault, which is stupid.
Yeah, that's super stupid. And he lashed out at the driver, and the driver at that point was like, oh,
the only way I'm going to escape this
is I'm going to be the asshole of this movie at this point. So at that point, his whole persona changed. The son, which he was driving for, basically was spiraling, dealing with heartache and trauma, and with that was a lot of alcohol, and the driver took complete advantage of that.
Yep.
And by that, he was basically signing, like, the car he was driving, he created fake repairs, and he was getting
he found ways to cheat the system.
Yeah, he was driving other people to make this money.
Yep.
And he was like, because I deserve more. I owe more.
Yep.
And then a big thing we weren't talking about is earlier in the movie, he was driving this guy to drop off money to politicians. Mm-hmm. And that came back in full front afterwards. So he was like, I deserve more. I get more. And which was good visual representation in this movie was it has been a red bag throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
It was a red bag before, and then at the end, it was also a red bag. So at the end, he decided, it was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to steal this money. And what he did is he took the biggest bailout possible, and he was like, hey, I'm going to steal this money. And then, this is when the nephew came to visit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he was like, hey.
Basically, that's all he said. Like, I'm your, he never met him.
Yeah. It's like, hey, like, I'm going to dip out. And I hope you know better, and I hope you know to leave. He murdered the son, you guys, and stole the money he was supposed to drop off to these rich aristocrats.
Politicians. Yeah. And he used that to start his own business.
Empire.
Yeah. And to me, the interesting thing at the end, you know, he's talking about how he does like this promotional video kind of felt like it, and he's talking about how he treats his people well.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's very interesting to see, like, it's his business, he's treating his people well, but then for me it goes back to the whole thing that got him in this place was his family sacrificed for him to get there, and he knowing that what people would do to his family, he did the things that he did and got them killed, and like it's kind of not even like a second thought to him.
A second thought. It's because he got out. It's no longer affecting him. But I really liked the movie. The twist I did not see.
No.
And it hurt my soul.
Well, I felt it building up. I knew something was going to happen.
Yeah, I didn't think murder.
I didn't think it was going to go that
with
far,
a bottle?
But at the same time, I'm like, how does he...
He did this with a bottle, saved the bottle, and like, then, there was no better option? There was no better option?
No. But I think it ultimately goes back to... how else do these people actually get out of what they're born into? And I don't think he would have had to do that if he didn't have to sign that affidavit saying that he killed someone.
I don't think there's an out though. Once you're something like I can't remember like the whole everything that I researched, but
it's brutal.
I don't think
it's brutal.
Yeah. But
so that was White Tiger.
Yeah, that was White Tiger.
Definitely worth watching, I would say. Even if, you know, the first you're hearing of it is through us and we gave away the whole movie.
You're going to love it.
Going back and like watching it and kind of just seeing it unfold yourself, like it's amazing. They did a really good job with it.
And we're back.
Hey.
I'm sorry I had to run away.
We've been drinking.
Yeah,
we got a little loose. gotta let the liquids out from time to time. Normal bodily functions. Have I just don't be ashamed. Just wanted to touch you.
Hi. I leak, you guys. I apologize.
All right, so I think one of the last movies
Petey Pablo had a song about me.
Freak a Leak. Shakira. Manaja.
Yeah.
Latavia. Freak a Leak. Brittany. Brandy.
I'm talking
Aristotle,
to you guys over there.
Freak a Leak.
We don't have that many
Sandra.
people back here in the yard. They just move locations, y'all. We're just letting you know.
Yeah, they and closer at that.
Yeah, they got closer for once. All right, so that was White Tiger.
Was White Tiger. And the last movie we watched this week that we want to discuss is from HBO.
Yes.
And it is called The Little Things.
Is it all the little things or just the little things?
Just The Little Things. Okay. Stars Denzel Washington, Rami Malek, and Jared Leto.
I've been calling him Rami Maleko, and that's the black guy.
I think that's his name, Jesus. And Jared Leto.
Yes.
Hev, go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead, Hev.
Here's a little thing about the movie. don't watch it. And here's a And speaking of Jared Leto, let it go out of your watch list. Don't
Jared Leto us down.
Jared Leto was so creepy, it was bad. It was so creepy that it was very bad. The movie was super intense. It was super intense for a letdown at the end. And I understand the letdown was a part of the whole... It was a part of the writer's job, or that was their point. And
I don't think so. I don't think any writer would be like, I want to make this movie great and then complete shit.
Here's what I was saying. Like, before everything, like, it was a stereotypical, cop that was shamed came back.
Right.
And all of a sudden he's on the scene, and it's about his old case. Let me jump in. And I'm like, okay, I've heard the story, but I'm into it. I like where this is going. I get it. I like it. And then how they ended it, I'm just like, you jerks.
The ending was
trash. Worse than Sopranos.
Awful. When it just fades to...
And it's equal to, if you haven't seen The Sopranos by now, guys. So it's equal to how bad the ending is for Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Or the last season in general. Like,
the only good time is when they killed the Frost King.
I'm like, more incestuous sex. Please.
More breastises and boobs.
Here's my synopsis. So it felt dated.
Okay.
It felt very in line with what you would see in like 90s. When I was watching it, I felt like Along Came a Spider. 7.
Okay.
Like
Lucky number 7.
It felt like that to me, and then come to find out, I was researching it. It was written back in the 90s, so I was like, oh, this makes sense then. But yeah, it was like, so can we break it down? So as a quick synopsis, Denzel Washington's character, he's like out in the kind of like the sheriff's department on like the outskirts of, the city or whatever. He ends up coming back.
Arizona.
It really did.
They drove to California, so
it was probably
been,
it's probably like on the 5 or 8 somewhere, and
number, you guys.
And he ends up going into the city. Mr. Robot, Rami's character.
Rami.
He plays Denzel Washington's replacement as the detective for the LAPD. This is all around the same time as like the Night Stalker, so in the 90s. And then their main suspect for the serial killing crimes that are going on is Jared Leto's character. I thought so.
He was on the first main suspect.
Yeah. So breaking it down by character, I thought Denzel Washington did an amazing job. Like, I thought he, for me, carried the movie as well as he could have carried the movie. Not his best performance by any aspect, but I thought Rami Malek's character...
I don't like... Okay.
I didn't like it. I didn't like how he portrayed it.
No. Rami shouldn't be cocky in any movie.
But that's kind of a very typical character that he plays.
He shouldn't be.
And then
him and Mr. Robot, perfect. Awkward, nerdy.
But he's also kind of confident. I thought they had a similar character.
In the first season, he was not.
Like
he may have grew into that confidence, but in the beginning, he was not.
So I wasn't super impressed by his performance, but at the same time, I don't know if it was a mix between the writing, because the writing felt dated, like it felt back in the 90s. Like I had seen this movie enough times before. Jared Leto's character, I was iffy on. There was a part where, in the scene where Denzel follows him out, is tracking him, and then they play that little like cat and mouse game on the freeway.
Yep.
That whole scene,
into it.
I was into it.
I was on the edge of my seat. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
You're gonna jump this rail and y'all gonna meet in the middle and just gunfight? Like I was ready for it.
When they visit the crime scene, the first crime scene or one of the first ones where they're in the house or in the apartment, and then Washington's looking across the street and he notices the window, and so he goes over there. I was like, okay, into here. When Denzel's character rents out that hotel room and then he puts up the victims of his own thing, which I think would have captured for me a bigger sort of had a bigger impact if they went into it a little bit more. It was just like this creepy old man sitting in this room with these 3 pictures of women, and they did kind of like cutbacks every once in a while to it. I
love the cutbacks.
Yes, and I wanted more of it because I felt like I was like, okay, this is providing context, but then they didn't get too deep into it, and I was just like, okay, it's kind of leaving it more at a creepy thing than like, okay, this guy really cared about like what was going on. So I would say 65 to 75% of the movie is like great. Like the tension's building up. You're like wondering what the fuck is going on. Like, is Jared Leto's character the ones that doing this or is he not? And it's building the tension really well. And then I'm going to let you kind of pick it up with the last 25%.
Because I'm going to ruin it. So here's the thing. All of the detective work, amazing.
Yeah.
The detective part, the building anticipation, the following through, the leads failing and or the first suspect no longer being in the picture. Great. Mm-hmm. Amazing. I would say that it was a good part, a good section of the movie. The part where the last 25% where you realize that Jared Leto is the main guy and they're just kind of honing in on him, it gets boring and it gets bad because first off they get to a scene where they are basically staking out. I was about to say stakeholder. Mm-hmm. They're staking out his apartment.
Yeah.
And they stake out his apartment. Jared Leto gets on the bus. He has 2 vehicles, but he gets on the bus and he goes to a strip club. Stays there all day.
That he's gone to previously.
Yeah. Stays there all day. Comes home really late at night. Stays there. And then a few hours, he leaves again. So, hold on.
Bodily functions.
But before Jared leaves, they're in the car staking him out, and they basically, Denzel goes to get coffee. Rami's still in the car. Something happens where Rami gets out of his car. He wanders over. Jared comes out and is like, "Hey, you want to go on a ride with me? I'll show you what I've done."
And so when that part, I was like, he's not going to do it. Like, that's stupid. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, why would you get in a car?
He pulled his gun out.
Like, he literally came up and was like, oh, you want to see where the bodies are? Like, let me tell you where the bodies are. And I was like, what motherfucker would actually believe someone was going to do this? So you have no evidence against this fucker.
He called the payphone.
Right, yes.
Rami got out.
Yeah.
And then he pulled the gun on Jared. And then he was like, want to see the bodies? And he was like, yeah. I'm going to have this gun on you the whole time. He's like, why? You're armed and I'm not. I was like, oh, okay, let me put my gun away. Don't get in the car.
Yeah.
Don't get in the fucking car.
Did it ever cross your mind that he's pulling your fucking chain? Like, he's been doing this whole fucking time?
Yeah.
What? Yeah. Like, it made no sense.
So let's backtrack just a little.
Okay.
So
we can do that.
They pulled in Jared Leto to interrogate.
Yeah.
And this was after the car scene where they were basically playing cat and mouse. Mm-hmm. They pulled Jared Leto in, and they showed Jared Leto the dead bodies. Then Denzel goes crazy.
Yeah.
He's like, why? Why what? Oh, you know why.
Because,
you know why.
So Denzel Denzel also thinks that Jared is probably the one that did all the murders of his case.
Yes.
That he has unsolved.
Yes.
And that's why. So that's kind of the connection here.
Yeah. He's like, what? Oh, you know why. He's like, I don't know why. And then I forget, how does he figure out that?
He does a little touchy-feely.
Oh, my God.
And he has a heart-on. Jared Leto has a heart-on. He's like, you fucking did it. You're hard over this.
Oh, my God.
like his first inclination to find out if this guy is the one that murders him is to grab his dick. Like, what?
What is he? You and Cabo?
Like, yeah, right. Like, come to my house. Shit.
Gross. All right.
Whatever.
So that happened. And then it rolls out to the whole thing where they're doing stakeout. And then they're like, and then Jared is like, yeah, you want to come see where I hid the bodies? And then they drive for hours upon hours to a
random, it was like you're on the highway and there's just like a break in the chain link fence with a gate. And
yeah,
he's
but
like,
he
open
had the key to the gate.
Yeah. He's like, open that gate. And then they drive some more. And he's like, okay, take a left here. And then they end up in like this huge, it looked like an acre of just dirt.
Near a mountain.
And he's like, yeah, I buried the body right there. And so then Rami's like, grabs the shovel and starts digging. And then like 20 minutes in, he's like, my bee.
My bad.
And it's over there.
My
And so then he starts digging over there. And he's like, my bee. Is over there. And then it's just like, at what point do you realize like your chain is being fucking
What lazy writing is this? And we forgot to mention, so when Rami jumped in the car and drove off, Denzel was walking back with the coffee.
Yeah.
Then
they were staking him out.
Yes.
They were tired.
And
Denzel's like, I'm going to go get his coffee.
Denzel threw cups full of coffee that made no sound when he threw them to the side because they were full of coffee, right?
Hev's
they made no sound.
In the movie.
Made no sound, full cups of coffee. And then he old man jogged back to the car, followed them somehow. He was at least a mile behind, followed them all the way to the location out in California, drove past where the little cutoff with the fence and everything like that, drove back up, like it was probably a few miles,
circled back
and realized, they're over here, drove through, found Rami. And at that point, you take it from me. I don't want to go.
So yeah, by the time Denzel shows up, Rami's just sitting in the middle of the field, like on his knees, defeated, and he's this way because at some point he had dug at least probably like 15, 20 at this point.
Yeah.
And then Jared Leto is basically like standing behind him, provoking him, like saying like, you're an idiot, I'm never going to tell you, blah, blah, blah.
I saw a picture of your family.
Yeah. He makes
never
it personal.
Killed anybody.
You're right. He makes it personal. And then it just makes Rami snap, and he hits him with his shovel, and he dies.
Yeah.
And so Denzel shows up, and then he's like, yeah, we gonna hide the body.
And Rami's like, what are we going to do? And Denzel's like, we ain't going to worry about this. We're going to hide this body.
So Denzel cleans up the motherfucker.
Yep.
Cleans everything up. He's like, I'll be back in a couple hours. He did his thing. Went and burned all the evidence, all that sort of thing. And he's like, listen, like, you gotta just get over it.
We forgot a key point.
The beret?
That, and then also, so it was before the stakeout. They called Jared Leto, and was like, hey, I want to apologize for how that interview went in the station and Denzel freaking out. Go meet me at this bar near your house. I'll be there and I'll meet you. And it was like Denzel's snuck into the house. Yeah.
So he's like, oh, I'll go to this bar. And then when he left to go to the bar, Denzel sneaks into his house to try to find some evidence.
Yeah.
Which, mind you, he finds some evidence, like nothing concrete, but like he lifts up the rug and there's like a missing floor panel.
Yeah.
And underneath that is like all the newspaper, like it's basically like, you remember Helga from Hey Arnold?
Yes.
And she had like that fucking gum shrine of Arnold. It was basically that.
Yeah.
Under his floor of all the murders that are associated with
And then
this
do we
case.
see the metal case at that time?
The metal case?
Yeah.
Remind me of what the metal case was.
It's the metal case that he takes at the very end. So he may or may not at this time sees the metal case in this house. And at this time, Jared gets to the bar, realizes no one's there, asks to use the phone, calls the payphone. Right? No. He calls in to the police station saying that their officer's been shot at his apartment.
Right.
Making all the police swarm his apartment.
And Denzel has to escape. With
Denzel still in there.
And his knees don't let him climb no house.
Denzel climbed a house.
I saw you in flight. You barely got out of bed.
Denzel climbed on top of a house, on top of a building, with police cars pointing at it, and he climbed, somehow had the stamina
vigor
to climb onto the other side of the house, outside of the glare of the headlights of these vehicles.
He found a way.
This
is the way.
Glory be to him. That's a movie he was in, right? He was a man not on fire at that time. Woo! 2 for 2. Matrix. He's not in the Matrix. I felt like saying it at the random. So that happened. And at the end, when he was cleaning things up, he goes back to Jared Leto's place, cleans up the whole apartment.
Right.
And he finds this metal box, opens the metal box, new scene. We go to the scene where he comes back to Rami, was like, hey, take some time off. Say that since the FBI is coming in, take some time off and you'll deal with this when you come back, such and such, such and such. So they cut to the police station, FBI is involved, and they go through all the scenes where it's like, oh, Jared Leto's car has been disbanded, his apartment's clean, and this is who we're looking for, this, that, and the other. We got to redo everything.
The FBI comes in.
Yes.
Yep.
So, and then we cut to Rami back in his house. He gets a piece of mail, and the piece of mail is from Denzel.
At the very end, after Denzel covers up the whole thing.
After he covers the whole thing. And in that piece of mail is a beret. And it says, angels aren't demons? Or demons aren't angels?
Yeah, something like that. It's the little things.
It's the little things that matters, right? And then you're like, oh, man.
You're like, oh, he killed him, but he did it.
Yeah, I get it.
Because the red beret was a thing that was missing from one of the victims. And so he was basically like telling Malik's character, like, oh, I found this beret in all of his things, so you're justified in killing this dude.
Yeah, you're justified. Stop feeling bad.
You did it for Move on with your life, which, great thing. Good thing for him to do. Because I think Denzel knows, like, I don't need this guy to end up like I was with my case, like, who got so consumed with it. Like, I'm going to spare him of that bullshit.
And then he cuts to Denzel burning everything, all the evidence back at his place.
Like a 3-pack of barrettes.
3-pack of barrettes
from CVS, all different colors, and the one that's labeled red,
candy apple,
whatever, is missing.
I remember it.
you got that mind, mind, body, and soul.
Oh my God.
And it's missing, and he burns it. So it's like, oh, Denzel. It's unconfirmed that Jared Leto
before he does that, he opens the case and opens the metal thing, and you see there's nothing in there. So you're like, oh, so he really didn't have trinkets or knickknacks. All he had was those clippings, and those clippings.
He could have just been an obsessed person.
Yeah, and we knew that he was because they talked about it earlier. So, yeah.
So, all in all, don't watch it. Well, I mean, if you are a fan of getting blue balls, I would say watch it.
Definitely.
Because 75% of this movie is wonderful.
Yes, 75%.
And you will not climax.
You will not climax. You definitely won't.
Like, that nut is not busted.
No.
Sorry to say, nut.
So, unlike BET After Dark, this is before, and it's not good.
Before dark. And no one watches BET Before Dark. Nope. Not since they got rid of 106 and Park.
No.
You watch 106 and Park?
No. You know what we like to watch? MTV.
Hey, MTV. No,
hey!
He refilled my drinky drink, so I got nothing bad to say about him.
We love you, Thundercat. All right.
I like you a lot.
I can say that.
We're not there yet.
I believe that's it for us.
No.
What else
There's one other thing I gotta talk about.
What else we gotta talk about?
Godzilla and King Kong.
Okay.
The trailer.
Okay.
The axe.
The axe.
Okay, so a trailer. We'll make this quick, people. Yeah, there was a trailer released of King Kong versus Godzilla. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's Godzilla versus King Kong. Whichever way it's presented to the public. It's the third movie in the King Kong, right? This is the third King Kong or third Godzilla movie. There was one of them. There was Godzilla King of the Monsters, and now there's Godzilla versus King Kong.
I haven't seen any of them, but go ahead.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, we don't need to talk about it then.
I take good, standards for my Asian movies that I watch, and Godzilla is not one. Who are you? Who let you into this yard? This is private property.
I am so excited for this movie. For the pure...
I want to watch this one.
For the pure trash of it. Yeah. Like, it's going to be...
It's a huge CGI fight movie.
Oh, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
It's going to be... I really liked the King Kong movie that they did a few years ago.
The one with Jack Black?
No, that was done like in 2009, 2010. They did another one. Skull Island. That was the one with... I think,
Jack White?
No. You can't just change the color of his last name and think it's fine. Like, this wasn't... What is he from? The Red Stripes or something like that?
Jack White Tiger.
He was in that Beyonce song. Don't Lose Yourself. The White Stripes. Thank you. So there's a moment in the trailer. Okay. Godzilla's swimming in the ocean, and he pops out. King Kong's on the fucking
ship.
The ship.
Yep.
And then they fight on the ship, and I'm like, that's so dope. It's like a teeter-totter, but a fucking fight.
Yeah.
And then there's a cameo of Mechagodzilla. I'm pretty sure he's gonna be in it. So it's like Godzilla, but it's all made out of fucking metal and shit, and it's like a robot.
Yeah, I know what that is. Yeah.
It's gonna be great. And then the end.
King Kong.
Near the end of the trailer, King Kong has this fucking axe.
Yep.
And it's made, the axe part, like the weapon part, is made out of one of the spikes from Godzilla's back.
Yeah.
And Godzilla shoots his little electric fire mouth shit, and it hits the spike.
His stomach laser.
And it hits.
From My Hero Academia.
Hi guys, I'm here. and he shoots the axe, and it charges up the axe, and then it cuts away. You don't see what happens. I assume he hits him. Maybe not. There's two options: he hits him or he doesn't. Hi guys. Yeah.
That's all I was thinking was stomach laser.
Yeah.
Just to bring it up right now. I thought we were going to bring this up earlier, and I'm too tipsy to talk about it.
Hella.
Yes, from the audience.
Of course.
You know, it really needs to be a crime for you people that never watched the Godzilla movie.
I've watched the old ones.
Yeah, I watched the old ones.
Godzilla versus Mothra. Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. I watched that one.
I've watched Power Rangers, which is basically the same thing. So I don't want you to start with
it. It ain't. Godzilla's worse. The old Godzilla's
Who's the good guy, King Kong or Godzilla? Seriously.
The good guys are the people who get away from the destruction of these monsters.
I'm gonna need you to put the drink down.
I don't have a drink.
Well, I think in the old films, both were victimized. Like, both were looked as like evil. But they were also very good. Like, in the King Kong movie, like, he falls for the blonde girl, you, pretty much, with the way you're dyeing your hair. But I think Godzilla
you no longer look like an Asian boy, Mom.
But it's rooted in, it looks like there's like a mural in a cave, because there's always a mural in a cave.
There's always a mural in a cave.
Like, no matter what movie, there was actually one in The Little Things.
It's almost so. Also, there's always a mural in the cave, and there's always a portal in the superhero movies.
Always.
That should be the name of this podcast: Mural in the cave, portal in a superhero movie.
That's a long title.
Yeah, it is.
MIC portal. God damn it.
Alcohol.
Yeah.
So who's the good guy and who's the bad guy?
Well, I don't know.
Who's the good guy and who's the bad guy?
I don't think it's really like I think even in the most recent Godzilla movies, they look at him as a bad guy initially, but then he ends up fighting and defending Earth. So then he's looked at a good guy. But then I think kind of like superheroes, there's some people for him, there's some people against him. Like it's just beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
The good guys are the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because they get pizza delivered to their sewer, and then the delivery guys don't ask any questions when they see on their receipt. So I just drop it off in this manhole. Cool.
It's DoorDash. Why would they look where they're dropping it off?
Fucking house. Yeah. Why would they care if they drop it off in a manhole?
It's 1, 2, 3 Pizza Drive. Not
everywhere.
That when I say 1, 2, 3 Pizza Drive, when I make my test cases for work, it's always 1, 2, 3 Pizza Drive.
I hate you.
Just FYI.
I hate you so much. Yeah. All right.
In Pepperoni, Ohio.
So this was a great episode, you guys.
If you're still here, I commend you.
Yeah, this was a long one, and we kind of got into it. And
speaking of long,
I appreciate you guys staying through this ridiculousness.
Baby, won't you just stay? Come on, for a little while. Baby, won't you just stay?
I have been one of your hosts. Have a nice day.
And as always, we got Key Willie on the track.
You guys have a blessed week, and we will see you next time.
Bye.